The Mineral Resources and Energy Minister, Gwede Mantashe, has called on international investors to come to Africa to advance the continent's existing mining activity. Mantashe was speaking on day one of the 2022 Mining Indaba earlier. This is where global stakeholders have gathered after a 2-year COVID-19 imposed break. Business reporter Dumisang Ndlovu joins us now. Dumisang, good morning to you. What more has the minister had to say to that mining Indaba, whilst at the same time we are watching that mining data that's to come out this week sometime that will give us an indication of how Q1 went thus far in 2022?
That's correct, Xoli. We heard from the Minerals and Energy Minister, Gwede Mantashe, a short while ago, where he was talking about issues that he's touched on before, being the just energy transition, as well as South Africa's ESG agenda on the continent, as well as on a global scale. And speaking of mining data that is expected to come out this week, there's been an issue with the commodities boom in that we've seen that South Africa has benefited, but at the same time, we are seeing that slow decline as the global economy starts to stabilize from the COVID-19 pandemic. But to speak more around the South Africa's agenda as well as role in terms of mining on the continent and the globe, we speak to the legal departments from Werksman Attorney. She's the head and a director there. This is Bulelwa Mabasa, just to talk to us about what more lies behind the mining Indaba and South Africa's mining future. Thank you so much for your time, Sis Bulelwa. Let's talk about really where South Africa is going and what agenda should South Africa be following, given mining and the future thereof in this country.
Thank you very much for having me. I think South Africa's history is steeped in mining, and the future is going to be that. But I think what's important in a conversation that we need to be talking more about is what role do communities play in mining? And also, what role does government play in the intersection between environmental sustainability and mining on the other hand? We need to have some kind of a policy direction. And this is where I say mining is also a land reform issue, because South Africa needs to map out for investors what land is actually secured for which land uses and what land purposes. And in that context, as a lawyer and as an attorney, we're seeing a lot of disputes that are coming into courts because there is this lack of coherence and interplay between environmental law on the one side and mining. So I think that in the future of mining, there's going to be a lot more engagement and true meaningful engagement between mining companies and communities.
Briefly, with the litigation that is currently ongoing, would you say that government has maybe dropped the ball in terms of bringing communities on board here?
I think so. And I think the trouble, as I said, the fundamental issues are land reform issues, because the reason that mining companies aren't able to engage properly with communities is because we have legacy issues such as in rural areas, people don't have title deeds, they don't really have a say, the land there isn't surveyed. And that's where you end up finding that there is this gap between communication and engagement between mining companies and communities. So there's a lot of work that government still needs to do around securing the tenure, land tenure issues for mining, for mining communities as well.
Xoli, that's the word from an attorney speaking on a different agenda to what the mining Indaba for 2022 is, but the real lived experience. And we are expecting to get a view of protesting community members that will be here to talk about how their involvement is impacted into the future outlook of the South African mining landscape.
Dumisang, just briefly before I let you go, are you able to tell us what the economists are seeing at this time when we talk about how Q1 of 2022 has performed, given the load shedding that we have seen, given the strikes that we are also seeing in the mining sector? What exactly are we able to see or foresee or foretell in terms of the outlook for Q1 performance?
Realistically speaking, Xoli, economists have been saying for quite some time that the commodities boom is not going to be one that lasts forever. And we've already started seeing that decline, as I indicated earlier on at the beginning of our conversation. But also when you speak of strike action, there is that analogy that is used, or rather the terminology, strike season in South Africa. And that's exactly what is happening in the mining industry. One case of reference would be the Sibanye Stillwater strike that is going on 3 months. And that is what the energy minister was also speaking about just last week, saying that the mining company cannot necessarily be at a stage where they are at an impasse with unions for much longer than 2 months at the time. And today, this week, we are in 3 months of strike action over wages, when the CEO has been getting a hefty payout, and executive pay remains an issue that speaks to even inequality in South Africa. Another factor that you mentioned, Xoli, was about South Africa looking towards the energy crisis. It is an issue that Minister Mantashe spoke about earlier on today, saying that we do need to stabilize South Africa's electricity supply to ensure that the mining industry, which also feeds into the manufacturing industry and the broader South African economy, is stable enough to ensure that we do not find ourselves in a situation where we do not have electricity supply that is feeding into an economic activity that is robust.
That's our business reporter, Tumisang Ndlovu, live for us in Cape Town at the mining endeavor. Thank you very much for the time being. All right, that's how we wrap up the second hour of Newsfeed AM.